That's Mike McDaniel, Dolphins head coach. Here we are, PFC Live, presented by Google Pixel. There was a time in the life cycle of the concussion protocol where coaches never even addressed player return dates from concussion, whether they would be back, wouldn't be back. It just wasn't talked about. And I think if you look into the nooks and crannies of the concussion protocol, there's still language in there that says you're not supposed to talk about it. Now, the problem is coaches started to talk about it. Nobody said don't talk about it, so it's just kind of evolved to they talk about it. But the way that it was first set up, it's just not even an issue. It's completely disconnected from anything the coach discusses. It's out of the coach's hands. And the fact that Tua has already been scratched for Week 5 against the Jets, it just is the latest indication of how politics, not politics in the traditional sense, small p politics, the organizational dynamics, the league office, how just all the stuff that's going on around this already makes it clear they're not going to put this kid back on the field, even if he would pass all tests and protocols and be fine by Sunday. Too much has happened to even dare let this kid play. And that's the right call. We've had possibly a concussion that allowed him to nevertheless pass all protocols, except for are you able to stand up and walk away from the spot where you hit your head. And then we had what we saw last Thursday night. So it's smart, it's prudent. They're not going to put him back out there until he knows that he's 100% healthy. And Jay Glazer of Fox mentioned over the weekend that Tua is getting other opinions about concussions. And Jay didn't get into the details here. But look, there's a point. And I want to have this conversation with Chris at some point. Maybe we'll have it later in the week. Maybe he'll be on here. At some of them, they moved to. Apparently, there's some box into which the microphone cords go where the box is just dead. What's in the box? Nothing. That's what's in the box. It's not working, so they're putting him in another spot. But I said this on WQAM Miami with Joe Rose, who's on the Dolphins broadcast team. And Joe made the point that the hit Tua took on Thursday night, you just got to get rid of the football and not take that hit. And that's one of the things that we hear preached to quarterbacks all the time. Get rid of the ball so you don't get hit. And when you are, and I'm not saying Tua should be disqualified from playing in the NFL, but when you aren't 6'5", when you are built kind of like me, frankly, when you're built like Drew Brees, you got to protect yourself. And you got to get rid of the football so you don't get whipsawed to the ground, get ragdolled to the ground. I heard Chris saying this on Sunday through the video conference that we have set up because I was home again this weekend. 6'5" guys don't get ragdolled to the ground. So there is, and I don't want to say an obligation. We've heard a lot about the obligation on the player to self-report, and I think that's kind of bunk because it doesn't mesh with the realities of the sport the way it's currently constituted, where if you step aside and someone else steps in, you may lose your job and never get it back again. But there is an obligation to protect yourself. And if you can't protect yourself when you're on a field with guys who are 6'4", 300 pounds, chasing you around within the limits of the rules, trying to hit you with the full force of their bodies, and you're 6 foot 190, or whatever the true stats are, the true demographics on Tua, and I've been around him. He's not, I mean, the first time I was ever at like an NFL thing, like the Super Bowl in Tampa, 2009, and you see Dan Marino or Boomer Esiason, it's like, holy shit, they're giants. Where'd you come from? And you've got guys playing quarterback in the NFL who are normal sized now. You've got guys chasing them who aren't normal sized. You've got to protect yourself. And that's a big part of this, I think, in the coaching of Tua and in the self-awareness that he has to have about whether and to what extent he can protect himself on a football field with other giants. It's admirable to have a little guy out there, a normal-sized guy who just happens to be little in relation to all the other guys who are chasing him. But if you can't protect yourself, you got a problem. And I think that's something that we need to consider and that Tua needs to consider as he gets ready to come back at some point. Teddy Bridgewater gets the start this weekend against the Jets. Skylar Thompson, who was very impressive during the preseason, is floating around. And maybe if Teddy struggles, who knows? We know if Teddy gets injured, it's going to be Skylar Thompson. But the Dolphins trying now to continue on a successful start to the season. Obviously, it's been clouded by the Tua situation, but they are 3-1, and they're going to try to get to 4-1 by beating the surprisingly 2-2 Jets. The investigation continues regarding the handling of the situation with Tua Tagovailoa week 3 against the Buffalo Bills. One of the things, and I mentioned this yesterday, but one of the things I'm very curious about, and I've yet to have anyone say to me, you're barking up the wrong tree here, it's kooky talk, it's stupid, like your usual stuff. No one's saying that. When I say, did the doctors who went through the checklist, remember, union wants to get away from the checklist approach. This isn't about checking boxes and saying go play. This is about treating a patient as a human being, not as a football player. Is it in the best interest of this human being to go play football right now? Full contact tackle football. Is it in this person's best interest? In the process of checking the boxes, with everything they do when they take the guy into the locker room for a full concussion assessment, did anybody bother to watch the video? The concussion protocol requires that the doctors, and remember, it's the team physician in consultation with the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant who make the decision here on whether or not the guy comes back. Did they, those two individuals, watch the video? They're required to do it, and one of the issues being examined in the investigation is whether they actually did. Wouldn't that be something if they didn't? Now, look, the NFLPA decided to fire the UNC for a reason. We don't know the specifics. What was reported by NFL media is failed to understand his role and was hostile during the investigation. Well, there's a lot of ways you can fail to understand your role. And if his role is you watch the video of what happened on the field and he failed to understand that, that would tend to answer the question. But boy, that'll be something. Let me tell you, if the two doctors responsible for putting this guy back out in harm's way didn't watch the video of the gross motor instability. I mean, there's been all this debate over, well, it was his head, it was his back, it was this, it was that, what is it, what is it? And, of course, the union's position is it doesn't matter. The guy's stumbling around out there, he shouldn't go back in the game. If the doctors never saw the video of the guy stumbling around, holy crap, they got a problem. And I think the Dolphins end up with a new team physician and maybe an entirely new medical staff if that ends up being the result in the investigation. They've promised us transparency. We'll see. And remember, they're talking to Tua this week. And I said this on Football Night in America on Sunday. One of the things they're going to ask him is, if you told them it was your back, what did they do to examine your back? What did they do? Did they examine your back? And how did they come to the conclusion that you were okay to go back into the game with a back injury that caused you to go wobbly and almost fall down? Because that's not safe either. That's the union's position. Whatever it was that caused him to do what we all saw should have kept him out of the rest of the game. So in the union's mind, it's much simpler than what it's been made to be. Is it the head? Is it the back? Is it this? That doesn't matter. What we saw, the reaction, the wobbliness, being held up by a teammate, that's enough to get you sidelined for the rest of the game for your own good. Even if you want to play, you're sidelined for your own good. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.